Next, on Currents News, a shooting surge in the so-called safest big city in the U.S. What's a parish's role in stopping the violence?
Pastors in the Brooklyn Diocese say the recent crime surge is a pro-life issue. I'm Jessica Easthope with how they're putting faith into action to help improve police-community relations.
And this woman defaced 3 Black Lives Matter murals. She's proud. Here's why.
I was being an American, but more than that, I was being a Christian.
The latest Catholic church up in flames, this one in France. Destruction that could have been done on purpose. Plus this.
My mom saved my life. My dad wanted to abort me.
In a bulletproof vest, Kanye West talks about abortion at his first campaign event. And tributes popping up across the United States to a peacemaker and freedom fighter. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. New York City is reeling from an explosion of gun violence on the streets of the Big Apple. Church leaders in the Diocese of Brooklyn are looking at the surge as a pro-life issue that needs immediate action. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Bedford-Stuyvesant.
This year, there have been more than 600 shootings in the streets of New York. Crime the city hasn't seen since the 1980s.
When you start to react with evil to evil, then you're only going to bring things down.
Father Frank Black ministers in the epicenter, Brooklyn. His parish neighborhood, Crown Heights, has seen nearly a dozen shootings just this month. It's a home he hardly recognizes, one that takes him back to the bad old days.
Breaking into people's businesses, shooting other people for whatever reason, drive-by shootings, that's not pro-life.
Violence fundamentally at odds with church teaching. To be pro-life is to respect all stages of life from conception to natural death, something he says is not happening in New York right now. In July alone, 239 shooting incidents have been reported, a 210% increase from last year. The shooting surge comes as the NYPD disbanded its anti-crime unit, a plainclothes group of officers that worked to keep illegal guns off the streets, but had a large percentage of complaints. Another area hit by gun violence, Bedford-Stuyvesant.
The violence in our community has to come to an end, especially for our young people.
Father Alonzo Cox, the pastor of St. Martin de Porres, says the church needs to focus on young people if it ever wants to help curb the violence and fulfill its role in the community.
We need to set an example for our youth and bring them together and to show them that we need to live in peace and harmony.
Father Cox has been holding virtual forums for the youth of his parish, allowing them to express their frustrations as well as their hopes for the future of their city.
Trying our best through, the gift of social media is to reach out to our youth. Our young people want to see peace. They want an end to this violence.
At a time when a swirl of violence is moving rapidly through the city, pastors say the power of prayer and peace can be much stronger. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
The NYPD is shaking things up to confront the spike in shootings citywide. Headquarters is reassigning about 200 cops by scrapping 2 key police units. One handled enforcement of moving traffic cases and the other took care of homeless outreach. The officers are being sent to neighborhood precincts to help curb gun violence. The changes are coming after the plainclothes anti-crime unit was disbanded last month. The 600 cops were responsible for cracking down on illegal guns. A woman who says she supports the police was arrested over the weekend after vandalizing the Black Lives Matter mural in Manhattan. But that didn't stop her from striking again. And now she's telling her thousands of followers on social media to rise up and take back the country.
Look at my hands.
This is Bevelyn Beatty's latest video on her YouTube page, which has been viewed more than 83,000 times, talking about her weekend. It all started on Saturday. Bevelyn and others spilling black paint, then smearing it all over the Black Lives Matter mural outside of Trump Tower. She was eventually arrested, but hours later, she reemerged in Harlem.
Before anything else can matter. What's wrong with you? Jesus has to die. What's wrong with you? You're a black woman.
As witnesses yelled at her, Bevelin spilled paint over the mural there while sitting in the trunk of a car.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, we in Brooklyn, and it ain't over. Jesus matters.
Then it was on to Brooklyn. Same plan, different location. According to her bio on social media, Bevelin Beatty is co-founder and evangelist of At the Well Ministries. Instead of Black Lives Matter, she uses the hashtag Jesus Matters.
Black Lives Matter does not speak about the black cop that dies. Black Lives Matter doesn't speak about the black man that dies due to black-on-black crime. Black Lives Matter does not address the black baby in the womb that's murdered.
And she supports police and the work they do and opposes moves to defund police departments.
We were the voice that they couldn't have. We were the stand that they couldn't take.
While there were people opposing her as she painted over the murals, Bevelin certainly has her supporters, as you can see from the thousands of comments on her videos.
A lot of people thought I was being a hero by doing what I did, but I wasn't being a hero. I was being an American. I was being an American. But more than that, I was being a Christian. This is what Christians do. We turn tables.
And she says she's not done turning tables or painting streets.
God is good.
Yes, Lord.
It was victorious, you guys. And we're going to keep going.
Bevelin says after posting her videos, the At the Well Ministries website crashed, and now some of her supporters have started raising money for her. New York City is now in phase 4 of reopening, but there's still a lot of restrictions. Restaurants and bars remain barred from having indoor customers. Malls, gyms, and museums can't open their doors just yet, but starting today, places like zoos can hold outdoor activities with a limited number of people in attendance. And pro sports teams can play, but without fans in the stands. At the same time, there is a warning tonight from Governor Andrew Cuomo. The reopenings could be rolled back if New Yorkers don't follow the rules. He's also concerned about a flood of out-of-towners coming to the Big Apple.
We now have people coming to New York fleeing the other states because it's the quote-unquote safe state. So we have people coming here just for the purpose of fleeing the virus in their state.
The governor is also reporting that the number of New Yorkers in the hospital for COVID infections is at its lowest point since the middle of March. There were just over 700 patients as of Saturday. That's compared to a peak of almost 19,000 on April 12th. In other parts of the United States, hospitalizations, new infections, and deaths are spiking. And with the surge, stay-at-home orders could return to the hardest hit places. But there is some potentially good news in the rush to find a vaccine against COVID-19. Daryl Forges has the story.
Over the weekend, daily COVID-19 cases climbed to record highs in the U.S.
There is no question that we're having a surge right now. We are approaching this with extreme seriousnness.
This is scary. I mean, now every day it's over 10,000. It's almost like the norm.
In states like Florida, ICU beds in Miami-Dade County now over capacity.
We're building 100 new ICU beds, but unfortunately they're not going to be around until the end of the year. So really every day it's a matter of a challenge of how we make sure we do that. But that's with the current ICU beds.
The surge in cases is so bad, the Bahamas, like the European Union, issued a travel ban for American travelers. Officials and health experts pleading to Americans to mask up.
We are not trying to take away your freedoms when we say wear a face covering. We're not trying to take away your ability to go out when we say keep restaurant capacity under 50%. We're saying if we do these things, we can actually open and stay open.
There is some promising news on the vaccine front. Preliminary results from a University of Oxford vaccine trial suggests it is safe and induce an immune reaction in adults 18 through 55 years old. It is just one of 23 different COVID-19 vaccines in clinical trials around the world.
We're going to make sure that we have a vaccine by the end of the year for emergency use.
Daryl Forges, Currents News.
Pope Francis is alarmed that the worldwide fight against the pandemic is not succeeding, and he's reaching out to those who are suffering from the disease.
In questo tempo in cui la pandemia non accenna a arrestarsi, desidero assicurare la mia vicinanza a quanti stanno affrontando la malattia e le sue conseguenze economiche e sociali.
The Holy Father is also insisting on an immediate and global ceasefire of all armed conflicts to help care for the sick and prevent the spread of the virus. A fire at a famous French cathedral is being investigated tonight as arson. The historic Cathedral of St. Peter and St. Paul in the city of Nantes erupted in flames and smoke Saturday morning. 3 separate fires broke out in the 15th century church, sparking the arson investigation. The firefighters saved the cathedral's roof, but the organ and Great Rose window sustained severe damage. A church volunteer was questioned about the fire, but released without charges. It was just over a year ago that the landmark Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris was badly damaged in a devastating fire. And here in the U.S., another Catholic statue is desecrated. This time, it was a monument dedicated to Jesus Christ. The statue was found decapitated and knocked from its pedestal outside Good Shepherd Church in Miami. The Archdiocese is calling on cops to investigate the desecration as a hate crime, adding the incident reflects the increasing attacks on the Catholic Church across the country. There's a lot more news headed your way. Why attacks on Catholic churches and statues are happening across the world, and are the acts getting enough attention? A member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians is here with us. Plus, why Kanye West says his mother saved his life, and tributes pouring in for a legendary leader of the civil rights movement. Stay with us.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
A wave of Catholic hatred as images of the Blessed Mother and Jesus Christ are being destroyed across the country, beheaded, smashed, even burned. Catholic advocates are saying that the media is sweeping the rubble under the rug, not covering the growing number of attacks. Here to talk more about that is Neil Cosgrove from the Ancient Order of Hibernians. They are the oldest and largest Irish Catholic organization in the U.S. Welcome. First off, why do you believe we're seeing this wave of anti-Catholic attacks?
That's a question for the ages. I mean, I don't see what the church, which basically preaches tolerance, preaches a sharing of blessings, teaches to love all humanity the same, is being attacked. I think that this is just pent-up anger, and unfortunately, I think the church is coming in as collateral damage on this situation.
Yeah, protesters have been destroying statues because of what they perceive as their negative history, tearing down figures of Columbus or St. Junipero Serra because of their treatment of indigenous people. But these are monuments to Jesus and Mary. Why such hate towards them?
Again, it makes you wonder. I can only think that it's somehow or another it's a perception of being the establishment. These people who are talking and preaching about tolerance obviously do not know their own history. I mean, Saint Sierra actually was an advocate for Native Americans. In his time, he would have been a progressive. He would have been on the far cutting edge of human rights in his era. I don't know where these people have learned their history, but certainly Catholics have, and especially Irish Catholics, have known intimidation and in violence throughout their history. Within living memory, we had to question whether a Catholic could be a president because there was fears that he would have dual allegiance between America and his faith. And sadly, even today in Congress, we hear people bringing those charges against some government appointees.
Now, the AOH has criticized news outlets for their lack of coverage on the destruction of Catholic statues. Why do you think this isn't being reported?
I think there is, for some strange reason, there is a hierarchy of outrage. For some reason, we've seen this before when, Catholic items are vandalized. Far too frequently, we see it swept away as criminal mischief, whereas the exact same act against another faith, quite rightly, is targeted as a hate crime. And I think there is this loss that there has been a long history of animosity and hatred to Catholics throughout our nation's history. And I think, and I don't think it's ever gone completely away, but people have forgotten. I think it's very sad.
Well, what would you like to say to the people who are destroying these statues?
I think first off, realize, what is your cause? If your cause is basically love and tolerance, then basically you're targeting the wrong institution. You should be encouraging people of faith, not just Catholics, but people of all faiths, to embrace their faith and embrace the lessons of toleration that all the major religions teach. I think you have to go back, look at your history, and just again realize that these people were radicals for their time. They were preaching, the gospel. The gospel was radicalism when it was preached 2,000 years ago. Saint Sierra was a radical when he was speaking up for indigenous rights. I think I don't know where their anger is coming from. It just seems more. It almost seems as if it's a primal scream. And also too, look at the intolerance the Catholics have, and like I said, within living memory. And I would question even if it has gone. I don't think it has gone away completely. How do you preach tolerance by engaging acts of intolerance? It makes no sense.
All right, Neil Cosgrove from the Ancient Order of Hibernians, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Two prominent writers based in New York City have left their jobs over tensions about their views. Andrew Sullivan walked out of New York Magazine on Friday, saying the culture there had become hostile to conservative voices like his, adding there's an increasingly narrow range of acceptable thought in the mainstream media. Just days earlier, Barry Weiss quit as an op-ed editor at the New York Times, saying she faced constant bullying by colleagues who disagree with my views. Kanye West claims to be running for president, and he gave an emotional speech about abortion at a rally in South Carolina Sunday. The rapper wore a bulletproof vest when he told the crowd his dad wanted him aborted.
My mom saved my life. There would have been no Kanye West because my dad was too busy.
West went on to accuse the well-known abolitionist Harriet Tubman of trading slaves. The crowd jeered him over that comment. In Washington, D.C. today, a special goodbye for the late Congressman John Lewis. The House of Representatives held a moment of silence this morning for the legendary leader of the civil rights movement. Speaker Nancy Pelosi led the tribute and said House Democrats are planning a memorial later this week. The congressman and freedom rider died Friday at the age of 80 after a battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And ever since he returned to the Lord, Americans everywhere are praising John Lewis and his legacy. He's being remembered as a hero and relentless servant. Meredith Wood has the story.
We cannot give up. We cannot give out.
A towering legend remembered. Politicians, religious leaders, and former presidents are paying tribute to the congressman and civil rights icon.
The movement lost an icon, and I lost a personal friend.
Lewis was the son of sharecroppers who survived a brutal beating by police during the 1965 march in Selma, Alabama.
The one thing that we gleaned from our beloved John Lewis was his hopefulness. That's how he could be arrested 40 times. That's how he could be hit in the head with injuries beyond one's imagination and still be standing.
Lewis died Friday at the age of 80 after a 6-month battle with cancer. He joined the civil rights movement when Martin Luther King Jr. brought him on board as a teenager.
As Dad inspired him, inspires me and millions of people around our world.
Former President Barack Obama, who awarded Lewis the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011, is calling Lewis his hero, writing that his election as the first black president was possible because of the sacrifices Lewis made. In Atlanta, the district Lewis served as the U.S. representative for more than 3 decades, he's being remembered as a timeless figure.
As the decades passed, young people could relate to him because they saw in him a kind of authenticity, a deep and unconditional love, unlike what we typically see in politics today.
In Washington, the flags at Capitol Hill and the White House lowered to half-staff. I'm Meredith Wood reporting.
So far, the Lewis family has not announced any funeral plans, but memorials are currently being planned in D.C., Georgia, and Alabama. Still to come on Currents News, could it be divine intervention when a random stroll becomes a rescue mission? Why one baby will grow up to say he survived because of a woman and her dog. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A simple walk turned into a rescue mission for a North Carolina woman when she and her dog found a baby sealed inside a garbage bag. Her dog may have followed his nose, but she followed her voice. Kendall McGee has the story of so-called divine intervention.
Cynthia Burton walks her dog Flounder several times a day. Thursday, they decided to take a different path home because of the hot pavement. That's when she heard a noise coming from a garbage bin behind a nearby church.
I heard a cry, a loud cry, and then I kept hearing it.
What she found will stay with her forever. It was a baby boy, just born, the umbilical cord still wrapped around his neck.
He would not have survived if someone hadn't been walking that way, because he was in the trash bin at the bottom. He was in a trash bag and the ties were tight. I couldn't open them. I had to rip the trash liner apart.
She ran to a nearby apartment complex, screaming for help. Luckily, a neighbor heard her and ran to assist. They cradled the baby boy. Burton calmly removed the cord and sang "Jesus Loves Me" to the tiny infant.
I saw the baby and I knew I had to take action. I didn't even wait a second. I knew I had to take action, because the baby was so bloody, it looked like it had just been born.
She says it was a mixture of divine intervention and being aware of her surroundings that saved the young boy's life.
It's pretty powerful. It changes your life. And I know God put me in that place at that time.
Despite the trauma of the boy's first moments here on Earth, Burton hopes the child grows up knowing his life has worth.
He's special. He was loved from the very beginning that I got him in my arms and saying, Jesus loves me, that he's going to live a wonderful life. And he's very powerful and very strong, because he cried out to live. And if I had walked by and not heard a sound, I'd have kept on walking. But he cried, and he kept on crying and kept on crying. He cried until I went and got the bag and pulled him up. And when I opened the bag, he stopped crying. But that's when I believed that he knew that he was safe.
That was Kendall McGee reporting. North Carolina does have a safe surrender law that allows anyone to turn a child over to a first responder, a social worker, or a healthcare provider. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.